My name is Andrew and I want to share 3 stories from people who work the night shift. These aren't campfire tales or urban legends. These are real experiences from real people who learned that the world operates differently after midnight, when most people are safely asleep and the people who are awake. Well, sometimes they're awake for a reason. Before we begin, I want to know, do you work nights? Have you ever felt that particular kind of vulnerability that comes with being one of the few people awake while the rest of the world sleeps? Drop it in the comments. Let's get started. Story 1, the 24-hour diner. My name is Marcus and I worked the graveyard shift at a 24-hour diner just off Interstate 40 in Oklahoma for about 8 months. This was back in 2019, right after I dropped out of community college and needed a job that would take anyone with a pulse and a willingness to work nights. The diner was one of those classic roadside places. Vinyl booths, checkered floors, a long counter with red stools, and a jukebox that only played country music from the 80s. During the day, it was busy with truckers, families on road trips, and locals grabbing breakfast. But from midnight to 6 a.m. when my shift ran, it was a completely different world. I worked alone most nights. There was supposed to be a cook, but our regular guy, Danny, called out sick constantly, which meant I had to handle the grill, the register, and the tables all by myself. It wasn't ideal, but I needed the money, and honestly, most nights were quiet enough that I could manage. The customers who came in during those hours were a specific type. You'd get the occasional trucker grabbing coffee before a long haul. Sometimes a group of college kids would stumble in after the bars closed, loud and drunk but harmless. And then there were the regulars, the night people. The ones who seemed to only exist after dark. There was this one guy I need to tell you about first because understanding him is important for the rest of the story. His name was Eugene and he came in every single night between 2:30 and 3 a.m. without fail. He was probably in his 60s, thin, with wispy gray hair and glasses that were always slightly crooked on his face. He'd sit in the same booth, third one from the door on the left side, and order the same thing, black coffee and a slice of apple pie. Eugene was harmless, quiet, polite. He'd sit there for exactly 45 minutes, reading a newspaper he brought with him, and then he'd leave a $5 bill on the table and walk out. Never said much beyond thank you and have a good night. Just part of the routine. I got used to him. Started looking forward to him actually because his presence meant the night was halfway over and nothing weird had happened yet. Then one night, Eugene didn't show up. It was a Tuesday in late September. I remember because Tuesdays were always dead and I'd been looking forward to an easy shift. By 2:45 a.m. Eugene still hadn't arrived. By 3 a.m. I was actually concerned. This was the first time in 8 months that he'd missed his regular visit. I told myself he was probably just sick or had something come up. No big deal. But it bothered me more than it should have. Around 3:30 a.m., a car pulled into the parking lot. I watched through the window as someone got out, not Eugene. This was a younger guy, maybe late 20s, wearing a black jacket and jeans. He walked to the door, pulled it open, and stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was his energy. He wasn't tired or casual like most late-night customers. He was alert, focused. His eyes scanned the diner methodically, taking in every detail before settling on me behind the counter. "You open?" he asked. "Yeah, all night." He nodded and walked to the counter, sitting on the stool directly in front of me. Not the end of the counter where most solo customers sat. Right in the middle. Right in my space. "Coffee," he said. I poured him a cup. He didn't touch it, just stared at it, then at me. "You work here alone?" he asked. That question always made me uncomfortable. I'd learned to deflect it. "Cook's in the back," I lied. "What can I get you to eat?" He glanced toward the kitchen, which was clearly visible through the service window. "Empty." He smiled slightly, like he knew I was lying but appreciated the attempt. "I'm good with just coffee." I nodded and busied myself wiping down the counter, trying to create distance without being obvious. But I could feel him watching me, studying me. After maybe 5 minutes of silence, he spoke again. "You ever see an older guy in here? Gray hair, glasses. Comes in around this time." My stomach tightened. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious. I've been driving past this place for weeks and I've seen him through the window. Thought he might be a regular." "We get a lot of regulars," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Yeah, but this guy, he's here every night. Same booth, same time. Like clockwork." He paused, watching my reaction. "He didn't show up tonight though." I didn't respond. I just kept wiping the counter. The guy leaned forward slightly. "You know where he lives?" "No." "You know his name?" "Eugene," I said before I could stop myself. I don't know why I told him. Maybe I thought being honest would make him leave faster. He nodded slowly like I'd just confirmed something. Eugene. That's right. What do you want with him? I asked, trying to sound casual but failing. Nothing. Just wanted to talk. He took a single sip of his coffee, set it down, and pulled out his phone. He scrolled for a moment, then turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of Eugene, standing outside the diner. Taken from a distance, probably from a car in the parking lot. The timestamp showed it was from 3 nights ago. You've been watching him, I said, my voice tight. Just keeping track, the guy said. He's an interesting person. I think you should leave. He smiled. Not a friendly smile. A knowing one. I haven't finished my coffee. I reached for the phone under the counter where we kept it for emergencies, but before I could grab it, the guy stood up. Relax. I'm going. He pulled out a $10 bill and placed it on the counter. Keep the change. He walked to the door, paused, and looked back at me. Tell Eugene I came by. Tell him I'm still looking for him. Then he left. I immediately locked the door behind him and watched as he got in his car and drove away. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone and almost called the police, but what would I even say? A guy came in, asked about a regular customer, showed me a photo, and left. No threats. No crime. Just wrong. I spent the rest of my shift on edge, checking the parking lot constantly, jumping at every sound. Eugene never came back to the diner after that night. I asked other staff if they'd seen him during their shifts. No one had. He just disappeared. About 2 weeks later, I was reading the local news online during my shift when I saw a missing person report. Eugene Martinez, 64, last seen leaving his apartment on September 24th. The date matched the night before he stopped showing up at the diner. I called the number on the report and spoke to a detective. Told him about the man who'd come in asking about Eugene. Described him as best I could. The detective took my information and said they'd look into it. A few days later, he called me back. They'd reviewed the diner's security footage and gotten a clear image of the man's face. Ran it through their system. He was a private investigator from Texas, hired by someone to find Eugene. Why was someone looking for Eugene? I asked. We can't disclose that, the detective said. But I can tell you Eugene is still missing, and we're treating this as suspicious. That was the last I heard about it officially. But I did some digging on my own. Found out through Facebook that Eugene had been involved in some kind of legal case years ago. Something about witnessing a crime. He'd been in some kind of protective custody or witness protection program, but it wasn't clear. I don't know if that guy found Eugene. I don't know what happened to him. But I know that for 8 months, Eugene came to that diner every single night at the same time like clockwork. And I know that someone was watching him, tracking his routine, waiting. I quit the diner a month later. Couldn't shake the feeling that I'd somehow been complicit in whatever happened to Eugene just by confirming his name, by being part of his routine that made him so easy to find. Now, whenever I see someone who's too interested in another customer, who asks too many questions, who seems to be tracking someone's patterns, I don't answer. I don't engage. I don't confirm anything. Because sometimes the night shift isn't just about serving food and coffee. Sometimes it's about being the only thing standing between someone and whoever's looking for them. Story 2. The parking garage attendant. My name is Olivia, and until 6 months ago, I worked as a parking garage attendant in downtown Seattle. It was one of those massive multi-level structures attached to a high-rise office building. 12 floors, about 800 parking spaces, mostly used by office workers during the day and event-goers at night. I worked the overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., Thursday through Monday. My job was simple. Stay in the booth at the entrance, process any after-hours entries or exits, monitor the security cameras, and call maintenance if anything went wrong. It paid decent for what it was, and I liked the solitude. I'm not a people person, so sitting in a booth by myself for 8 hours was actually perfect. The garage itself was pretty standard. Concrete, fluorescent lights, painted lines, numbered spaces. During the day it was packed, but by the time my shift started, it was usually less than a quarter full. Just the cars of people working late or residents of the luxury apartments on the upper floors of the building who paid monthly for their spots. The booth where I worked was on the ground level, right by the entrance. It was small, maybe 6 feet by 6 feet, with a swivel chair, a computer for logging entries and exits, and a wall of monitors showing feeds from security cameras placed throughout the garage. 12 cameras total, 1 on each level, positioned to cover the entrance/exit ramps and elevator areas. For the first few months, nothing unusual happened. I'd sit, scroll through my phone, watch shows on my laptop, occasionally process a vehicle. Easy money. Then I started noticing patterns in the security footage. It was subtle at first. I'd glance at the monitors and see a car on level 7 that I didn't remember seeing enter. I checked the logs and realized it had come in during the day shift, so I just hadn't noticed it. No big deal. But then I started seeing movement. It would happen maybe once or twice a week. I'd be watching the monitors and catch something in my peripheral vision, a shadow moving across one of the screens. I'd look directly at it and see nothing. Just empty concrete and parked cars. I told myself it was fatigue. Working nights messes with your perception. Your brain starts seeing things that aren't there. But then one night in early March I saw it clearly. It was about 2:30 a.m. I was watching the level 9 feed when I saw a person walk across the screen. Just walked from one side to the other, passing between parked cars and disappeared off screen. I sat up straighter, fully alert now. We occasionally got homeless people who'd sneak in to sleep in stairwells, so this wasn't completely unprecedented. I was supposed to call security if I saw unauthorized persons in the garage. I watched the level 9 feed for another minute. Nothing. Then I checked the level 10 feed thinking maybe the person had gone up the ramp. Nothing there either. I called the building's security desk and reported it. They said they'd send someone to check. 10 minutes later, security called me back. They'd done a sweep of levels 9, 10, and the stairwells. No one there. All clear. I thanked them and went back to my monitors, uneasy but willing to let it go. Except it kept happening. Over the next 2 weeks, I saw figures on the cameras at least a dozen times. Always on the upper levels, 7, 8, 9, 10. Always just walking across the screen and disappearing. Never the same person twice. Different heights, different builds, different clothes. I reported it every time. Security would check. Never found anyone. After the 4th or 5th time, I could tell they were getting annoyed with me. One of the security guards, a guy named Rick, implied that I was either seeing things or making it up for attention. I stopped calling them after that. But I kept seeing the figures. Then one night, something different happened. It was a Friday night around 3 a.m. I was watching the monitors when I saw someone on level 11. Not walking this time. Just standing. In the middle of the parking level, directly under one of the fluorescent lights facing the camera. I stared at the screen, my heart rate picking up. The figure was completely still. Just standing there, looking directly at the camera. Looking directly at me. I couldn't make out details. The camera resolution wasn't great at that distance. But I could see it was a person. Wearing dark clothing. Tall. Very tall. I watched for maybe 30 seconds. The figure didn't move. Then, slowly it raised one arm and pointed. Directly at the camera. Directly at me. I grabbed my phone and called security. Told them someone was on level 11 standing in the middle of the floor, not moving. I said it with urgency, trying to convey that this was different, this was real. Rick answered. I could hear the skepticism in his voice, but he said he'd check. I kept my eyes on the monitor. The figure was still there, still pointing. Then the feed cut to black. Just level 11. The other 11 camera feeds were fine, but level 11 was completely dark. Rick, I said into the phone, the camera just went out. What do you mean went out? The level 11 feed is down. It's just black. I'm heading up there now, he said. I waited, staring at the blank screen, my stomach tight with anxiety. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, my phone rang. It was Rick. There's no one up here, he said. And the camera's fine. It's working. What do you mean it's working? I'm looking at it right now, it's black. I'm standing in front of it. It's on. The light's blinking. I looked at the monitor. Still black. Check your system, Rick said. It's probably a glitch on your end. I restarted the computer. When the feeds came back up, level 11 was visible again. Empty. No figure. No one standing there. See anything now? Rick asked. No, I said quietly. Like I said, probably a glitch. He hung up. I sat there for the rest of my shift, checking the level 11 feed compulsively. Nothing appeared. But I couldn't shake the image of that figure standing there pointing at me. The next night I came in for my shift and something was different. There was a car on level 12. Level 12 wasn't a parking level. It was rooftop access, restricted to maintenance only. There were no parking spaces up there, just mechanical equipment and a helipad that was never used. But on the monitor, clear as day, there was a car parked up there. I checked the logs. No entry recorded for that vehicle. It shouldn't be there. I called security. Rick came down to the booth. You seeing this? I asked, pointing at the monitor. He looked, frowned. That's weird. Should we check it out? Yeah. Come with me. We took the elevator to level 12. When the doors opened, we stepped out onto the rooftop. Empty. No car. Nothing. It was right there, I said, pointing to where I'd seen it on the camera. Rick walked over to the spot, looked around. No tire marks. No oil stains. Nothing. We went back to the booth. I pulled up the level 12 feed. The car was there. Right there on the screen. But we'd just been up there. It wasn't real. Rick stared at the monitor, his expression changing from skepticism to unease. That's not possible, he said. I know. He pulled out his radio and called the other security guards. Told them to come to the booth. When they arrived, all three of them looked at the monitor. All of them saw the car. One of them suggested reviewing the recorded footage to see when the car appeared. We pulled up the archive. The car had been there for 3 days. Just sitting on level 12, visible on camera but not actually there. The head of building security was called. He came down, looked at the feed, went up to level 12 himself, came back down. We're calling IT, he said. IT came the next day. Checked the system, the cameras, the wiring. Everything was functioning normally. No explanation for why the camera was showing something that wasn't there. They replaced the level 12 camera entirely. New hardware, new wiring. The car was still there on the feed. After that, building management made a decision. They shut down level 12 entirely. Locked the access door, disabled the elevator stop, removed it from the system. I transferred to day shift a week later. Couldn't handle the night shift anymore. The figures, the pointing, the phantom car, it was too much. The person who took over my night shift quit after 2 weeks. Said the same things were happening to her. Seeing figures on the cameras. Things that weren't there. The building eventually hired a security company to staff the garage 24/7 with rotating guards who never worked alone. I don't know what was happening in that garage. I don't have an explanation for the things I saw on those monitors. But I know that somewhere on level 12, there's still a car that exists only on camera. And somewhere in those upper levels, there are figures that walk across the screens and disappear. And I know that whoever took that overnight shift learned the same thing I did. Sometimes what you see isn't real. And sometimes what's real doesn't want to be seen. Story 3, The Hotel Night Auditor. My name is Devin, and I used to work as a night auditor at a mid-sized hotel in Northern Virginia, just outside DC. For those who don't know, a night auditor is basically the overnight front desk person. You check in late arrivals, handle any guest issues, run the hotel's end-of-day financial reports, and make sure everything runs smoothly while everyone sleeps. I worked there for almost 2 years, from 2020 to 2022, during and right after the pandemic. The hotel was never fully booked during that time. Business travel was way down, and we mostly got government contractors, families visiting relatives, and the occasional tourist. My shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., Wednesday through Sunday. For most of the night, I was the only staff member in the building besides housekeeping, and they usually finished around 2 a.m. and went home. The hotel itself was pretty standard. 4 floors, about 120 rooms, a small gym, a breakfast area, and a lobby with a fireplace that was always on even though it was fake. It was clean, quiet, and usually uneventful. But there was one room that we stopped renting after an incident. Room 312. I need to give you some background first. When I started working there, I noticed that 312 was marked as out of order in our system. I asked my manager about it, and she said there was a plumbing issue and maintenance was working on it. Months went by. The room stayed out of order. I asked about it again, and she gave me a different excuse, something about mold remediation. Then one night, one of the housekeepers, a woman named Rosa who'd worked at the hotel for 15 years, told me the real story. In 2018, a guest died in room 312. Natural causes. Heart attack. He was traveling alone for business, and housekeeping found him the next morning when he didn't check out. That happens sometimes in hotels. It's sad, but it's not unusual. What was unusual was what started happening after. Guests who stayed in 312 complained. Not about the room itself, but about noises. Footsteps in the room above them, except 312 was on the top floor. Knocking on the door in the middle of the night. The TV turning on by itself. The bathroom light flickering. Management dismissed it as coincidence. Old building, thin walls, electrical issues. But then a guest called the front desk at 3 a.m. hysterical. Said someone was in his room, standing at the foot of the bed, watching him. Security went up immediately. Found the door locked from inside, the guest alone and no one else in the room. That guest checked out immediately. Refused to stay another minute. After that, they stopped renting the room. Rosa told me all this casually, like it was common knowledge. She said she refused to clean 312 even when it was out of order. Said the room felt wrong. I thought it was just hotel superstition. Every hotel has a haunted room story. I didn't believe it. until I spent time alone with that room at night. About 6 months into my job, I was doing my rounds, checking that all the exterior doors were locked, making sure the pool area was secure, that kind of thing. It was around 2:30 a.m., and I was on the 3rd floor checking the ice machine. As I walked past room 312, I heard something. Music. Faint but definitely music, coming from inside the room. I stopped and listened. It was an old song, something from the 50s or 60s. Instrumental. Like elevator music. I checked my master key card and confirmed the room was still marked out of order. No one should be in there. I knocked. Hello? Hotel staff. The music stopped. I waited, listening. Nothing. I used my card to unlock the door and pushed it open slowly. The room was dark. I flipped the light switch. The lights came on, revealing a completely empty room. No furniture. Just bare carpet, bare walls, and a bathroom with the door open. I checked the bathroom. Empty. I stood there for a moment, confused. I definitely heard music. But there was no radio, no TV, nothing that could have made that sound. I left the room, locked it, and went back downstairs. The next night, I mentioned it to the overnight security guard, a guy named Marcus. He said he'd heard things from that room before too. Footsteps mostly. Sometimes voices. Do you believe in that stuff? I asked. He shrugged. I believe there are things we don't understand. And I believe that room has something in it that doesn't want to leave. After that night, I started paying more attention to 312. And once I started paying attention, I couldn't stop noticing things. The door was always cold. Even in summer, even when the rest of the hallway was warm, the door to 312 was cold to the touch. Sometimes I'd walk past it and hear sounds. Not music anymore, but movement. Footsteps. The sound of something being dragged across the floor. One night I heard knocking. From inside the room. 3 slow knocks. Pause. 3 more knocks. I stood in the hallway, staring at the door, listening to the knocking repeat. I called Marcus. He came up and we both stood there listening to it. Someone's in there, I said. No one's been in there for 3 years, Marcus said. We opened the door together. Empty. Silent. No explanation for the knocking. After that night, I started having dreams about the room. Always the same dream. I'm walking down the 3rd floor hallway, and the door to 312 is open. I can see inside. There's a man standing in the center of the empty room, facing away from me. He's wearing a suit. He doesn't move. He just stands there. In the dream, I know I need to close the door. But I can't make myself move. I just stand there, staring at him, waiting for him to turn around. He never does. I always wake up before he turns. I had that dream maybe a dozen times over the course of a few months. Then one night, a night I'll never forget, something escalated. It was a quiet Tuesday around 4 a.m. I was in the back office running reports when the front desk phone rang. I answered. Front desk, this is Devin. Silence on the other end. Then a voice. Mel. Older. I need to check out. Sure, what's your room number? 312. My blood went cold. Sir, there's no one in room 312. That room isn't occupied. I'm in 312. I need to check out now. Sir, I'm looking at the system right now. That room is out of order. It hasn't been rented in years. The voice didn't respond right away. Then, I need to leave. Please let me leave. The line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone, my hands shaking. I called Marcus, told him what just happened. He came down to the lobby. You think it's a prank? He asked. I don't know. We pulled up the call log. The call had come from room 312's extension. We went up to the 3rd floor together. Marcus unlocked the door to 312. The room was empty, as always, but the phone was off the hook. Marcus and I stared at it. Neither of us spoke. He walked over and hung up the phone. It clicked into place. Then right in front of us the phone rang. We both jumped. Marcus picked it up. Hello. I watched his face go pale. He hung up without saying anything. What? I asked. Same voice. Said, I need to check out. We left the room. Marcus locked it behind us. I requested a shift change the next week. Moved to day shift. I couldn't handle the night shift anymore. The dreams, the sounds, the phone calls, it was too much. The hotel eventually did renovate room 312. They gutted it completely, changed the number to 314 and started renting it again. I heard from a former coworker that guests still complain about that room. Noises. Cold spots. The feeling of being watched. But management doesn't take it out of order anymore. They just tell guests it's an older room and offer to move them if they're uncomfortable. I don't work in hotels anymore. I found a job in an office, regular hours, no overnight shifts. But sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about that voice on the phone. I need to check out. Please let me leave. And I wonder if whoever's in that room is still trying to leave. And I wonder if they ever will.